What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PickSix Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host, and this is Merry Christmas, right? This Thursday? I don't know what day it is.
This is
What day is it?
Well, this is Christmas Eve, so
Merry Christmas Eve!
happy holiday, everyone.
To you, Debo, and to you, Frank Stampfl. What's up, buddy? How you doing? This is the DFS podcast, the main slate edition. Of course, there is a Christmas game between the Saints and the Vikings. That is a separate podcast in your feed. You can also check out the best bets in your podcast feed on Friday. We release one show per day. Debo, we should release this show on Friday and the best bets on Thursday.
We don't have to have a strategy discussion now, but I think it's going to be how you first outlined it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I don't know what day it is. I'm traveling to my parents and my in-laws. Hope everyone is safe. Happy holiday, and you have lots of content to enjoy if you are traveling, and maybe hopefully you're not traveling. Hopefully you're sitting at home enjoying warm eggnog or cool eggnog, I guess. Warm cocoa and cool eggnog. Anyway, I don't know what the hell's going on. Frank, what's up, buddy?
Yo, what's going on? Merry Christmas to you, Will. Merry Christmas to everybody listening as well. Happy holidays. It was a good week. It was a good week of football. I'm excited to jump back in.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. Did you how'd you do in week 15?
I broke even. I did have a ton of Tony Pollard, so that news broke pretty late. You had to get him in your lineups, but had some Jalen Hurts. It was a solid week. Pretty much broke even. But how about you?
I actually I did the the old power sweep tournament, which is the max 3 entry, kind of a pricey entry, but finished 257th in that. So I won a single entry back. Ended up losing because I did 3 entries in that. But the reason I mentioned that is that the late in that contest, I had a legitimate look at a big score. I finished with 177 points. I had Kyler and Hopkins as a stack with Tony Pollard, had Brandon Ayuk, who was super chalky. Terry McLaurin was a little disappointing. Cole Kmet at tight end was a disaster. He was also chalky for some reason. And Emmanuel Sanders, but mostly the Washington defense killed me. Jonathan Taylor. I'm not really sure where I went wrong in there. The winning score was 209. Had Kyler 2. Oh, J.D. McKissick. Wow. He had a huge game. I guess I needed some Corey Davis and Cowboys defense, and then I would have had a big day.
Yeah, and some people ran so luckily hot with Fournette too. Whoever just plugged him in, he was at 4,500. He was awful, but he scored 2 touchdowns. So whoever ran hot with that, I mean, congrats to you. But gosh, he is not great.
I didn't put Tony Pollard in all of my lineups, mainly because I thought that everybody would have Tony Pollard, and he was shockingly under-owned. I mean, he was 24% in this contest. I thought he'd be 80% with Zeke Elliott out, and the news broke at 10:30 maybe.
Yeah,
maybe 10:30 or 11, somewhere in that range. So it wasn't it was 12:45, and it's Zeke were late scratch. When you hear something like that, do you pivot to? Do you try to? I mean, because there's a huge advantage. Just like when Joe Mixon was scratched on it's not like Joe Mixon was scratched or went to the hospital on Saturday, then ended up playing on a Sunday. Are you inclined to pivot 100% to that late? I just expected there to be Tony Pollard to be more owned than he was.
Yeah, I think it's situationally dependent, and that's probably the cop-out answer. But I mean, in this situation, their backup was Dowdy.
Yeah,
if you can tell me anything about him, then please, I'm all ears. But I think in that situation, you knew Pollard was going to handle 80+% of the snaps, basically all the work. He was going to get, close to 20 touches, and he's going to catch a few passes as well. So even in a tougher matchup at 5,200, yeah, I thought he was a jam for sure. So I got him in 100%. I think if this is something that happened on Friday, if Zeke got ruled out, you would have seen his roster rate much, much higher, Will.
Yeah, I agree. And so that's just something to keep in mind for future reference, that even though it happens, it feels like it's happening earlier, you can still get a ton of leverage by pivoting that guy. And it's worth noting that if he doesn't jailbreak that late touchdown,
he was pretty bad for most of that game.
Yeah, he wasn't.
That was a large majority of his production. It's
by the way, I know we usually do this at the end of podcast, but I remembered this as we were about to come on, so I went over there and grabbed it. My friends at Extra 1360 in San Diego, the radio station there, Darren Smith and Marty Caswell, pay me in beer for my radio hit. I go on their show once a week, and Marty mailed me a big batch of beer, and one of them I thought of you, Frank, because this is from Thorn Brewing out in San Diego. It's the Dickel Pickleback Ralph, and it is a barrel-aged pickle sour in Dickel rye barrels.
Oh, man.
I don't even know how good that, I guess. I mean, like, I'm kind of intrigued to try it. Aged 18 months in Dickel rye barrels. So pickle and Dickel.
Ooh, man. So try and figure this one out. Love sour beers. Don't like actual pickles.
Sure.
Love pickleback shots. So
What are pickleback shots?
pickleback shots is shot of Jameson followed by a shot of pickle juice.
Ooh, you like pickle juice, but not.
Not normally, but it goes very well with Jameson.
Interesting plot twist.
Try it out.
All right, let's get to the games. Falcons at Chiefs. Chiefs minus 10.5, over under 54. The only over under. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. We didn't do the Saturday slate. We got to cover that first. I'm really out of it. So the Saturday slate has 3 games. I was like, where the hell are all the games? The Saturday slate has 3 games. We'll pretend that this is, because I think for Saturday's purposes, I mean, you're going to do I love the 3-game slate. Like, it's just fun trying to figure out the combination. And there are 3 games, as we mentioned. They're actually high-scoring games. It sort of takes away from the rest of the slate. But that's okay. Bucs at Lions starts things off on Saturday. The Bucs are minus 9.5. The over-under here, 54, Frank. Matthew Stafford actually played pretty well, considering how banged up he was. But I think it's worth noting that Chase Daniel came in for him late in that game. And so Stafford, the 3rd highest quarterback, listed as questionable, 5,600, for Stafford, 6,800 for Tom Brady. Interest in either of these guys when Kyler Murray is also on the slate?
I don't mind Brady, but I think Kyler is probably the guy. What I've seen is Brady and Kyler are very clearly the top 2 projected quarterbacks on this 3-game slate.
And in fact, let's, if this is okay, let's list the games and talk about this by position. I think that's a better way to do it.
All right.
So we have Bucs at Lions, over under 54. 49ers at Cardinals. Cardinals minus 5, over under 49. And then the Dolphins at the Raiders, the Hawaii Bowl between Tua Tagovailoa and Marcus Mariota, a matchup of two of the finest Samoans to ever play football. Dolphins minus 3, over under 47.5. But back to your discussion of the quarterbacks, feel free to loop in Tua and Mariota there.
Yeah, so for me, it's Kyler very clearly at the top. I think Tom Brady, if you want to pivot off against the Lions defense and that secondary that's just been beat up and not great all season with the weapons that he has, I don't mind Tom Brady in the spot. And then if you want to pay down, I mean, the cheap quarterback play is Tua at 5,400, just because the Raiders defense is as bad as they are. Mariota is only 5K, so I guess he's somewhat interesting, but I think the Dolphins defense is actually really good, so I don't really want to mess around with that. So for me, it's Kyler. If you want to pivot off Brady, and the cheap guy is Tua.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably fair because the Dolphins defense is good. Mariota's price is at least intriguing though. At $5,000 is dirt cheap. But I mean, Tua at 5,400, when he's probably going to use his legs more than Mariota, I would imagine. So I think you have a little more rushing upside and a little more rushing touchdown equity there. And then Stafford at 5,600. I think I tend to agree with you. Kyler at 7,500 is a ton, but I mean, he is a different quarterback over the last 2 games. Like he was playing, he was not doing what we want Kyler Murray to do for 3 straight weeks. And now over the last 2 weeks, he's just rushing a lot more. He has 21 rushing attempts his last 2 games, 1 touchdown, over 76 yards total, I believe. And he had rushed 15 times total in the 3 weeks before that. He's clearly healthier. His passing yardage is way up. He had 3 passing touchdowns last week against Philly and has a pretty fine matchup here against the 49ers, who I think at this point are sort of starting to check out. I mean, when you get blitzkrieged by the Cowboys, it says a lot.
Yep. And I think Kyler has the highest upside on the slate. We saw that last week, 38 DK points, and he looks like he's getting back to himself. He's getting healthier too, obviously, with that shoulder. He's more likely to take off and run, and he's throwing more down the field again. And for what it's worth, he rushed for a season-high 94 yards against San Francisco back in week 1 when they were mostly healthy. They were healthier than they are now. So I think we can you get some rushing yards again from Kyler in the spot.
San Francisco, for whatever reason, over the last 2 years, has sort of struggled with rushing quarterbacks. So yeah, I think Kyler is the play. If you want to pay up at other spots, though, Frank and I both agree, Tua is the guy to go down to if you want to save $22,000, I guess, in terms of salary cap space. At the running back position, Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, 6,600, the highest priced guy up against that Miami defense. DeAndre Swift, unfortunately, being priced appropriately for this slate. Swift has been coming on strong. I played him a little bit last week. He had 23 fantasy points, 2 rushing touchdowns, caught 4 passes, although not for a ton of yardage. Ronald Jones still on the COVID list as of Wednesday when we record this. So that's obviously a pretty big factor, whether or not you go with Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette. Jones, 6,000, Fournette, 5,500. And then Salvon Ahmed is 5,600. And after that, you get to Raheem Mostert, Myles Gaskin, also on the COVID list. Kenyon Drake, a pretty cheap 5,200 though.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake is interesting, and I think you'll get him at a lower roster rate because he burned some people last week. I was talking him up. I was excited about him, admittedly, just based on the role that he's had. But with Kyler running around a little bit more and throwing downfield, we're starting to see that early season Kenyon Drake again from a fantasy perspective. So I think he's probably a contrarian guy, but not someone that I want a ton of exposure to. I think if Ronald Jones is out, Leonard Fournette, as bad as he is, and I was just like talking so badly about him, I think he's probably in another smash spot here. 5,500 going up against the Lions. He's going to get to work in the red zone. He's going to get a few targets as well. So if Ronald Jones is out, I think Fournette's probably the smash spot. And Jeff Wilson at 5,000, it sounds like Raheem Mostert is not going to play.
Hey, Mostert's on IR.
Yeah. Raheem Mostert's on IR. So
he's, it's all, although Wilson got a little banged up at the end of that game too.
Yeah, I got to make sure that he's like good to go, but
yeah,
he's talented enough at 5K where he's probably going to get 15 plus touches in that spot.
And even in the event that Tevin Coleman got involved, which would be kind of surprising, he had 3 carries against Dallas. Jeff Wilson still profiles like the goal line back. Even when Mostert was healthy, they were giving it to Wilson a lot in the goal line. So if San Francisco can get into the red zone, which seems likely against an Arizona defense that's okay, but not great, he could be in line for some good spots. I don't like Jacobs at all. I can't believe he's priced that high. I mean, I guess given the other running backs, it makes a little bit of sense. I don't mind DeAndre Swift, and 6,400 is a lot. I think if you're going with Kyler, you're probably paying down at running back. But the thing about Swift, and this is sort of my argument for playing him last week, was there's a good chance the Lions are going to be trailing. And the Buccaneers are a good team against the run. They're not great anymore without Vita Vea. You can pass on them. They got great linebackers. So, I mean, they could slow you down. But I think if the Lions are trailing, Swift is going to be the guy in there. And, there's a youth movement of sorts going on there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he saw way more reps than Adrian Peterson in the spot.
Yeah, he should. And it's trending up that way, too. Since he's returned, he's played about 60% of the snaps. So I agree. Like, he'll get some targets. He had 5 targets this past week. I think the problem here at 6,400, Will, is that you need him to score. You need him to score against this defense for him to really pay off. And it's certainly possible because when they get down there, they use him over Adrian Peterson. But, yeah, if he doesn't score, Tampa Bay, they've only allowed 1 running back over 59 rushing yards all season, and that was Dalvin Cook. So it's still a pretty tough matchup. As for the Dolphins guys, like Myles Gaskin, we're recording this Wednesday. What I just saw is that he's practicing. So if he plays, I don't really want either one. But if he were out, I think Ahmed is interesting in like a 15 to 20 touch role.
I think you're playing Ahmed if Gaskin's out. I was looking at just building a lineup as we're going. I had Murray, Ahmed, and Jeff Wilson. So to pay up for the quarterback, pay down for the running back, because those top options, as we mentioned, like Jacobs is going to get fed, but it's not a great matchup. And, although I wonder if he might improve with Marcus Mariota if they let Mariota run a little bit. At wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, substantially priced over everybody else. He checks in at 8,300. Next up, Brandon Ayuk, 6,700. Mike Evans, 6,100. Chris Godwin, 6,000. And then you got to get down to Antonio Brown at 5,300 before the next guy. Who piques your interest at wide receiver?
Yeah, so just up at the top, DeAndre Hopkins. The problem here is that if you want to play him with Kyler, you have to decide which 2 of the 3 you want to play. Kyler, Hopkins, and Darren Waller. You have to decide, because trying to get all three of those guys in the rest of your roster is just going to look dreadful, even if you get those 5K running backs in. So you have to decide. So if you want to go Hopkins and Kyler, you're going to have to spend down at tight end. So just keep that in mind. But Hopkins looks like he's coming back around again, and we know what his upside is and what he's capable of. So I still really, really like him in this spot. And there's not really another wide receiver that you want to pay up on. Brandon Ayuk has been great, but he's 6,700, and CJ Beathard is his quarterback, and he's going to have Patrick Peterson, I assume, shadowing him. So as much as I loved him last week, I don't really love him as much this week. Just some lower price guys. Marvin Jones, assuming Stafford's good to go at 4,900. The Bucs defense, their secondary has been good for most of the season, but they are, so many teams are trailing against them that they're just giving up garbage time production to wide receivers. So Jones has looked good at 49, and Antonio Brown. Look, if you want to get a Bucs wide receiver, just take the one that's cheapest, and every single week that's Antonio Brown, because they're all sharing targets. And he finally scored a touchdown last week. So
he looked pretty sharp last week, just moving down the field. I don't mind Lynn Bowden either at 3,900. He's had 2 out of the last 3 weeks. Has gone over. Actually, each of the last, he's 9.2 DraftKings points or more all of the last 3 weeks. 6, 7, and 4 receptions, and hasn't even scored yet. Also, usually gets at least 1 rushing carry per game. So there's some upside there if he could break one. And I mean, I don't think they're going to turn him into a running back, but I just think he's an interesting player. Oh, wait, oh my God. Oh, yeah. It's a Lynn Bowden revenge game.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah. He got traded by the Raiders before ever playing a snap in his entire career, and now he's coming on. Oh, yeah. Smash Lynn Bowden.
Yeah.
This is the spot where if you're Brian Flores and you want to get in good with your players and you want them to like you, you feed Lynn Bowden. And Tua's going to hook him up against this Raiders team. I love it. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, 3,900. You're going to need some salary relief somewhere, too. And I'd be much, much more excited about him if Devontae Parker is out, so pay attention to that injury news. The only other name that really kind of stands out as salary relief is Danny Amendola, 3,700. But, yeah, I'd rather Bowden for the $200 more.
Yeah. All right, tight end. Darren Waller, obviously the most expensive guy, 7,000. George Kittle not playing. So it's next to TJ Hawkins at 4,600. Mike Gesicki is questionable. He actually played last week. No, he did not play last week, right? He was ruled out late.
He did not play.
Yeah, he was practicing throughout the week. It looked like he might play. He did not. He's 4,400. Rob Gronkowski, 36. Dan Arnold, 32. Jordan Reed, 29. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Reed's the tight end that you spend down on if you want to go that route. If you want to live in the mid tier, obviously Gesicki, the last time we saw him, looked phenomenal with Tua, and just with all those guys banged up. So, but you got to see if he's healthy. If Gesicki's good to go though against this Raiders defense, not really scared about that. Hawkinson, another one. He's been rock solid all season long. The Bucs actually struggle against tight ends, so this is a decent spot. And then Waller all the way up at the top. And I spoke about him a little bit. We know what his upside is. He is tight end 3, I believe. Oh, tight end 2 in fantasy points per game. He would actually rank as a top 12 wide receiver.
Wow. Behind only Travis Kelce, who's having a historically great season.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Waller too is when Derek Carr, got hurt, Marcus Mariota wasn't shy about targeting Waller. And it almost felt like he was going a little more vertical to Darren Waller than you typically see Derek Carr do, which I think is kind of interesting. 9 catches, 150 yards. I mean, that's 16.6 yards per catch. I mean, that's his highest total of the year.
That touchdown he caught on Thursday Night Football, I think it was like over the shoulder, right? Down the field.
Yeah. It was a deep ball. I mean, Mariota might be willing to be more vertical in this offense than we've seen. How are the Dolphins against tight ends?
They are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it matters for Waller. He's just he just sees so many targets. 28% target share. That's the most among tight ends this season. But
you're right. It is very difficult to get DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, and Darren Waller in. All right. What about defense? The Dolphins have to be the top choice, right? Maybe the Dolphins at 4,000, Bucs 3,800, Cardinals 3,300, 49ers 2,700. I don't see how you can possibly go with the Raiders or the Lions.
Yeah, the Cardinals are my favorite going up against CJ Beathard. 3,300. They're the third highest priced. I think the Bucs could have some upside, especially if they manage to knock Stafford out. If we see Chase Daniel in this game with the Bucs pass rush, we could see some mistakes there. So much more likely to play the Cardinals and the Bucs.
All right. Here's the lineup that I put together. with your help, sort of, I guess. Kyler Murray, Ahmed, Jeff Wilson, Lynn Bowden, Marvin Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Darren Waller, got all three of them in there. Cardinals defense leaving me 4,500 for flex, which is Nelson Aguilar, Mike Gesicki, Kendrick Bourne, Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, or anyone cheaper. Your thoughts on who I should plug in this flex spot?
Aguilar hasn't been bad, but again, the Dolphins secondary is
very good.
Very good.
There's a chance that Nelson Aguilar is shadowed by Xavier Howard, which is terrifying.
Yeah. That is not a great spot to be in. Did you mention Amendola? Did you have him in there already?
I did not mention Amendola.
3,700. That's probably the guy I would look at.
Okay. Or is there a Amendola's not very exciting.
No, he's not.
Is there Gesicki? If Gesicki played, he'd be the guy, I think.
Dual tight ends.
Dual tight ends. Dual tight ends has won the Millie Maker like 3 of the last 4 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, not many people do it, especially if you play in a GPP or tournament.
All right. I'm going to plug, this is the Millie Maker. I'm going to plug Gesicki in. Obviously I will be pivoting away from him to somebody else. Maybe Amendola, maybe Aguilar, maybe one of those running backs for San Francisco, depending on how things play out. And I might change up that Ahmed if Gaskin is playing. So we'll see on that. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will do the regular slate since that ate up a ton of time for some reason. Okay, Falcons and Chiefs. I mentioned it before. Chiefs minus 10.5, over under 54. This is the highest total game of the main slate. Frank, it doesn't seem like Patrick Mahomes is stoppable. No matter how, if he plays bad, if he plays a good defense, it doesn't matter. He just puts up points. He's not in a dome here, but this is a pretty good matchup for him.
Oh, it's a fantastic matchup. The Falcons are still allowing the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. They've given up multiple touchdowns in 3 straight games. And even at 8,500, I would consider Mahomes one of the 3 best quarterback plays this week. His upside is 30, 35 plus. We've seen that a few times already this season. It's hard to get Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey in there all together. And I am once again going to lean towards Tyreek Hill. It didn't work out for me last week. Travis Kelsey outscored him. But I just think if you want to spend up all the way up for somebody this week, Tyreek Hill is my guy going up against this Falcons secondary. So at 9,000, I'd rather go for him. If Julio Jones is out, Calvin Ridley has just been absolute money. So at 8,500, if you wanted to spend up at wide receiver and maybe
the 2 highest priced wide receivers on the slate.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to do both of them, but
I don't know how if you go with Mahomes and Hill or Mahomes and Kelsey as a stack, you have to be willing to spend way down elsewhere because I think you have to come back with Ridley. Like I don't see how you do that stack and don't come back with Ridley unless you want to gamble and come back with Hayden Hurst.
I was thinking Russell Gage too at 5,100, who's been playing better recently.
He puts up a ton of points.
Yeah, he has. But no, look, Ridley, that combination of stack plus bring back Ridley, I mean, if you get Mahomes, one of his pass catchers, and Ridley right there, you can be looking at like 75 points from those 3 players.
Russell Gage, 12.8 or more DraftKings points in 4 of the last 5 weeks, including 15 or more each of the last 3 weeks. He's had 14 catches and 2 receiving touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. Don't hate it.
I'll throw Le'Veon Bell's name out there. Clyde is obviously not going to play. And Bell scored a touchdown last week. If he gets 15 plus touches in this offense, he's one of the 3 running backs in that 5 to 6K range. He's 5,800. That I like a good amount this week.
Okay. Matt Ryan. Actually, Matt Ryan had a huge game, and then he ended up being like not even top 5 quarterbacks. So
Last week was crazy for quarterbacks.
It was. Well, and I think and we'll get to the Eagles next because they're playing the Cowboys. But when you have Jalen Hurts at $7,000, I don't see why you would. Or don't you think? Well, let's just get to it. Eagles minus 2.5 at Cowboys over under 49.5. And if you have any more thoughts on that game, feel free to leak them in. But Jalen Hurts is $7,000. Why would you play Matt Ryan at 5,800 is really cheap. Never mind.
Yeah, I think the argument against Matt Ryan is why would you play him at 58 when you can get Trubisky for 100 cheaper going up against the Jaguars, right? So it's like the Bears have a huge implied team total. I think it's 27 points. They're expected to score 4 touchdowns. Even if David Montgomery scores 2 of those, then that still leaves 2 that Trubisky could score. whether it's him throwing both or running for one. So against the Jaguars, my argument would just be I would use Trubisky over Matt Ryan. As for the Eagles and Cowboys, Jalen Hurts is my favorite quarterback play. He's 7,000, and he's going to be very, very.
Your three quarterbacks that are Trubisky, Hurts, and Mahomes.
I like all three. Yeah, and they're all three different price points too. So it's someone you can pay up for, someone in the mid range, and then Trubisky's like that sub 6K quarterback that I like quite a bit. But I mean, Jalen Hurts, especially against this Cowboys defense, they've given up the 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've also struggled against Kyler and Lamar in terms of their rushing. They allowed 74 or more rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to both of those quarterbacks. So I think we could just be in for another massive game from Jalen Hurts. And this is a big game for both of these teams.
Absolutely. The Eagles are 7-1 to win the division, but as Debo knows, they are not dead. I bet on them on what's today's Wednesday. I bet them on Tuesday night. Took the Eagles at 7-1 to win the division. Do you think that Hurts ownership is going to be really high this week after basically, sending a ton of people into the standard league finals and winning a million maker back-to-back weeks, essentially. And the thing about Hurts too is you can go naked Hurts. I love naked Hurts.
Look, and you don't really need much else in this game. You mentioned naked Hurts, but even if you wanted to, his pass catchers are so cheap in this spot. Dallas Goedert is 3,600 in a great matchup. Since Jalen Hurts has become the quarterback, he leads the team in targets, a 22% target share. So he's my favorite tight end value play. Greg Ward scored 2 touchdowns last week. Didn't really do much else, so he ran hot, but he's only 4,000. If Jalen Reagor is somehow out, Alshon Jeffrey is 3,200 against this Cowboys defense. So you can go naked Hurts, but I actually don't mind getting a few of these Eagles pass catchers in there.
Are you bringing it back with a Cowboys player? Michael Gallup remains underrated.
Yeah. Gallup is, if he's healthy, because I know he's questionable to start the week. I haven't seen the practice report yet for today. But since Andy Dalton returned in week 11, Gallup leads the team in targets, and he scored a touchdown last week. So, yeah, at 4,100, he's the guy. If Gallup were to somehow miss this game, I think Amari Cooper at 5,700 is probably a must play.
Oh, you think if Gallup's out, Amari Cooper must play? Okay.
Yeah, at that price. Yep.
Okay. All right. I like it. Broncos at Chargers. Chargers -3, over under 48.5. We think about the Broncos as a tough defensive matchup. That may be kind of true, Frank, but their cornerbacks are gashed. I mean, this depth chart has destroyed any interest in Justin Herbert here.
I don't think it's a bad spot, and you will get him at a super low roster rate.
7,400.
He threw for 3 touchdowns last time he faced the Broncos, so that is within his range of outcomes. It's tough to spend 7,400 on him when Hurts is $400 cheaper, because I do think the way that Hurts is running right now, his upside is probably higher than Herbert. But not a bad GPP kind of contrarian play here with Justin Herbert. I like the running backs in this spot. Melvin Gordon's actually playing really well. He scored 2 touchdowns last week, along with Le'Veon Bell.
Melvin Gordon revenge game.
Yep. And he's one of those mid-tier between 5 and 6K running backs that I do like. Austin Eckler, assuming he's healthy, just seeing a ton of targets. So 7,600, I like it, but it is hard to pay that price when David Montgomery's only $100 more.
Yeah. Montgomery's finally priced up at 7,700 the way that he should be. And you would also save $100 to go Jonathan Taylor at Pittsburgh if you were so inclined, because Jonathan Taylor's, we know, an unstoppable force. Just kidding. Yeah, Melvin Gordon's actually looked pretty good relative to how I think Melvin Gordon typically looks. And the Chargers defense is suspect at best.
Yeah.
Joey Bosa, who's always on the injury report, is out. Their run defense really craters. Rams at Seahawks. Seahawks -1.5. Over under 47.5. I think if you wanted to stack Russ and DK, you'd probably get pretty low ownership rate this week.
Absolutely. Their roster rates are going to be so low. Wilson is 7,300. I think based on the matchup, it's still too high. But if you do want to just do a contrarian, this is the Heath contrarian stack of the week, it is Russell Wilson with DK Metcalf. Metcalf now down below 8K. Again, he's at 7,800. So the last time he faced him, he did not perform well against Jalen Ramsey. We all know that. But if he breaks loose and scores a long touchdown, then he could potentially pay off that. Darrell Henderson, 4,500, salary relief. He's going to be, I think, one of the better value plays this week. Cam Akers has already been ruled out, so probably see 12 to 15 touches for Henderson, and maybe
I would
more.
hope it's more than that.
Yeah, but the problem is if Malcolm Brown somehow gets a drive and he just looks good, then he's going to end up being the guy. there is some downside to Darrell Henderson, but on the the flip side to that is if he's performing well, then we could see 15 plus touches for him at 4,500, which is a really good cost. And Robert Woods is just super consistent. We say it every week. Everyone perceives him as someone who doesn't have upside. 7K in a game with a 47.5 total against a secondary that has played better. I'm not going to completely poo-poo the Seahawks because they have played better.
Their schedule's been so soft.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it feels maybe it's getting better, but it does feel like it's propped up by the fact that they played the Jets, the Giants, the Washington football team. Like, I feel like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I don't know if we said it on the DFS pod, but I was saying everywhere, like, we're going to be talking about the Seahawks defense improving in the month. And let's remember who they played when we start talking about it. Maybe they did get better. They had Carlos Dunlap, Jamal Adams is almost up to 10 sacks, but I don't know. I think it's a little premature to suggest that they're just back all of a sudden.
Yeah, I like Woods. I mean, they have to score somehow, right? If there's no Akers, we could see Goff throw the ball a little bit more here in this spot. Kupp has just been so meh, and he's 400 cheaper than Robert Woods. So I just think Woods is much safer.
Jared Goff, 8 career touchdown passes in 9 games against the Seahawks, and also 8 interceptions. Those are not good splits.
Not great, Bob.
Yeah, not great, Bob. 14-6 against the 49ers, but he throws for a ton of yardage against the Seahawks. He just doesn't. He averages 241. Yeah, I don't know about this passing game. I think this is a game where the total it's just higher than it should be, and it's an under game.
I am perfectly fine completely fading this game outside of Darrell Henderson.
Okay, I agree. Browns at Jets. Browns minus 9.5. The Jets will be without Quinnen Williams, which is a big factor because all of a sudden Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt both immensely more attractive. And I think you could even argue that, I don't know if you can do it, it's 6,100 Baker Mayfield, not off the table.
It is not. I actually agree with that. And I think it was probably a month ago, Will, we were sitting here like, Baker Mayfield is a game manager. There's no way you can use him in DFS. And since then, I think he's like a top 10 quarterback in fantasy.
33.5, 34, and 21. He's just been a great fantasy quarterback in general the last 3 weeks, and his price hasn't gone up reflective of his production, I don't think.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. So 6,100, I can get behind that with Baker. If you want to get one of his pass catchers in, Jarvis Landry could absolutely go off, and he has like a over 30% target share since Odell Beckham went down, but that is just a big price tag. I don't think that there is $2,000 worth of difference between Landry and Rashard Higgins. So Higgins at 4,800, a sub 5K wide receiver. That's somebody who I do really like this week.
The one thing I would be cautious about with Baker, and I think the Giants defense is a little bit better than people give him credit for, but they were missing James Bradbury. Now, like, you can't look too much at Vegas or Houston because that was heavy win games, and we knew those games would go under. Against the Giants, they just had such a commanding lead, and the Giants just couldn't score, that Baker didn't do a whole lot. Like, he still threw for 300 yards and 2 passing touchdowns, but I mean, I think his ceiling might be capped by the fact that the Jets won't force them into a more aggressive offensive game script. That would be my concern here. Although, it's possible that he goes nuts because he's, going up against Sam Darnold, even though he was drafted over Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're reaching too far for a narrative there, but
maybe, probably.
If the Jets somehow come out and look like they did last week, then that's your path to Baker having a huge game. And clearly it's within the range of outcomes because they did it against a defense that's better than Cleveland in the Los Angeles Rams. So I won't completely rule it out. I don't really want to get involved with any of the Jets here. If you want someone, Denzel Mims is 3,600. We talk about him quite a bit. Austin Hooper is one of my favorite tight ends below 4,000. He's 3,500 this week, and the Jets are the worst team against the tight end in the NFL. So,
well, the Browns have awesome tight ends, and Austin Hooper did get involved. I actually like that play.
Scored a touchdown last week too.
Yep, he scored the first touchdown because it cost me a couple hundred or a couple units. I love betting first touchdown scores in these primetime games. I'm going to put down Hooper as a good tight end option for the main slate. So I'm sort of building out a lineup. Excuse me. Moving on. Bears minus 7.5 at Jaguars, over under 47. David Montgomery might not be talented, His matchups are good. They're feeding him the rock, and he is a fantasy monster the last 4 weeks, 20, his lowest DraftKings point total in the last 4 weeks, 27.1. I like to think we got ahead of this curve, Frank. We saw the schedule. We were calling out David Montgomery back when he was, the salad days of 5,300, now 7,700 in a smash matchup against the Jaguars.
And he's going to be extremely chalky, and rightfully so. Since week 12, he is tied as the RB1 in fantasy points per game with Derrick Henry. Shout out to the FFT guys as well, because they were talking about him all season long as a buy low, and it's really coming to fruition now. Montgomery has at least 111 total yards and a touchdown in each of those past 4 games. So it's not one or the other, 111 or he's done that in each of the past 4 games, over 100 and a touchdown. And the Jaguars are starting to crumble here. So 77, extremely chalky. Don't mind pairing it up with the Bears defense, 3,600. Doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. If it's Minshew, if it's Glennon, if it's Luton, I think the Bears could show up here in this spot. We spoke about Trubisky a little bit earlier. He's my favorite sub 6K quarterback. 27 point total they have to score. They're going to score, they're projected to score 4 touchdowns. I like Allen Robinson at 7,700. Don't hate Darnell Mooney at 4K. And Cole Kmet is 3K. He burned people last week. He played 100% of the snaps, Will.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then here's the thing. Here's the other thing too. So Kmet should be pretty low roster rate because he probably cost me a couple $100, by laying an egg there at my tight end spot in that one where I cashed. Trubisky, because Hurts is 7,000, because Baker is cheap. I don't think Trubisky will be that rostered, and you get natural leverage off of David Montgomery if you stack Trubisky with one of his pass catchers. Like if he throws 4 passing touchdowns and Montgomery finishes with 125 rushing yards and no scores, you will have huge leverage, whether it's Robinson or Kmet. I mean, I think you could double stack Mooney, Kmet, Robinson, any one of those guys.
Yeah, and think about if you go Trubisky, Mooney, Kmet, that gives you so much flexibility for the rest of your roster. I mean, you can get Tyreek Hill and Ridley together in that lineup if you wanted to. And you can if you bring it back with Laviska Shenault, who's 3,700, I mean that just gives you even more flexibility. You could get anyone else you want after that. So if somehow the Jaguars keep it close and Shenault performs well, I think he had 7 targets last week with Minshew back. That is a route. It's a route. It might not be the route, but it is a route.
Do you have to do a bring back in that spot if you do Kmet and Trubisky?
I don't think so, because the Jaguars spread the ball around quite a bit. I mean, there's a chance that
I think we could see multiple quarterbacks in this too. So you really don't know exactly who to trust in terms of, this could just easily be 34-3, and the Jaguars wouldn't care because they're getting Trevor Lawrence.
And we've seen the Bears, even in games where they're up, they don't really take their foot off the pedal. We saw that against the Texans a few weeks ago, where they just kept throwing. I think Trubisky had 33, 35 pass attempts in a game where they were winning handily all game. Yep. So, yeah, I think that's a good point.
Okay. And yeah, they don't even feed Montgomery when they get a lead. It's very bizarre. And plus, yeah, anyway, moving along. Bengals at Texans. Texans -8, over under 46. Gio Bernard back?
Well, I was depending on you to talk me out of it. Out of
is the ghost of Heath here? What's happening? The Texans are terrible against the run. I do think that we'll see Giovanni have a decent roster rate, maybe because of what we saw on Monday night. Is that possible?
I think
4,800 against the worst rush defense in football.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be between him and Darrell Henderson, and coming off a game
25 carries against the Steelers.
He had 26 total touchdowns or 2 touchdowns.
I mean, if they're going to give him 25 carries against the Texans, he's going to be a top 5 running back.
He should go off, man. The Texans have given up 95 or more total yards and a touchdown to a running back in 3 straight games.
They're the worst.
The highest yards per carry to running backs, 5.4.
The only path is that they get a lead without Bernard scoring and they just decide to feed P. Ryan or Williams.
Or if he fumbles on the first drive of the game and they just bench him.
That's what happened 2 weeks ago.
That is what happened 2 weeks ago.
He doesn't ever fumble. So I think I like him in this spot. Man, if you go Trubisky, Kmet, Bernard, you can do the rest of your roster is is a playground. Like you can do whatever you want, an empty playground. You can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, there's actually good value on this slate. So that's why, we talked about in the first game, Mahomes and Ridley and Hill together. It's actually doable because we have a few cheap tight ends that we like, Goddard, Kmet, and Austin Hooper. We have a few cheaper running backs here. So it's, you have to spend up big for that Chiefs game, but it's doable. There's a good amount of value on this slate. On the other side here, just talking about like some GPP plays, I don't think Watson is going to have a very high roster rate this week based on all the quarterbacks that we've talked about. And I think his upside is still up there with basically anybody. So, I don't mind.
The Bengals aren't good. Ben Roethlisberger just stakes. He's just old and washed. I mean, that's true. Watson and Cooks could go off here against the Bengals defense. And they are in a prime letdown spot. They have 2 wins. Or they're, I don't know how you get let down if you're the Bengals, but yeah, you're right. No one will be on Deshaun here. And you are in a situation where, at least with look at these games. I mean, Washington outside, Steelers outside. Not that you're going to be on these games. Ravens outside. Jaguars could rain, be nasty. Jets are in New York. Like I said, yeah. I mean, the Chiefs outside. You're getting a guaranteed indoor game against a bottom tier defense with Deshaun Watson, a quarterback who has massive rushing upside and passing upside.
Yeah, 24 or more rushing yards for Watson in 10 straight games too. So if you want a cheap pass catcher for him, Chad Hansen, 4,400, scored a touchdown last week. Don't mind it. If Duke Johnson is out, David Johnson at 6,100.
Don't you dare.
Becomes imagine a lineup with David Johnson and Giovanni Bernard in it together.
You sick person.
That's like the all you've burned me team.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. All right. Moving along. Unless there's anybody else in there. Jordan Akins. Might go down that route again.
Nah, I like those other cheaper tight ends more. The Texans D, I don't mind. 2,800.
Been hurt too many times to do that with Akins.
Shout out to Ryan Wilson though. Did he get his Ryan Finley tattoo yet?
No, we are going to get a dime size. Well, 2 user submissions we got. One was the suggestion that he get a dime size tattoo on his on his bicep, and then Finley's face on the dime, which would be pretty good. All and then somebody also said you could get 7-13-89 tattooed, which sounds like it's Ryan Finley's birthday. It's actually his passing stats against the Steelers. So when somebody's like, "Oh, is that your son's birthday?" It's like, "Nope." Wedding anniversary? Nope. What is it? Ryan Finley's passing statistics from week 15 of 2020. Okay. Giants at Ravens. Ravens minus 11, over under 45. It looked for a hot minute last week, Frank, that it was in fact the Lamar Jackson breakout game that we've been waiting on. He had a big game against Jacksonville, but not to the extent that it just overshadowed everything else. He's now at 26.7 fantasy DK points or more in each of the last 3 games. Why? Because he's running the living crap out of the ball.
That he is. And this is another one where I won't have a lot of exposure, but I might want 1 or 2 lineups just because, like Deshaun Watson, Lamar's upside is massive, and he's running, and he looks like the Lamar from last season, the MVP Lamar 2019. And when a quarterback is running this way, I mean, you get that 100-point bonus on DK, a 100 rushing yard bonus on DK, and you throw a rushing touchdown or 2 in there. Next thing you're looking at, I mean, you just got a massive game, and Lamar is one of those quarterbacks capable of it. So I want 1 or 2 lineups. J.K. Dobbins, I think he's a good GPP running back. If they somehow just give him 20 touches in this game, he can just go absolutely ballistic. We can get 100 total yards and 2 touchdowns.
He looks awesome. I mean, he's just a really good running back. Has a touchdown in each of the last 3 games, up to 6,200, which is not cheap.
It's not, especially based on some of the other cheaper running backs that we have, but I think that's why a lot of people are going to look the other way on him.
Okay. Panthers, actually, we'll do these last 2 together because they're both sub 45 totals. Panthers at Washington and Indianapolis at Pittsburgh. Will you be messing? I mean, I joked about Jonathan Taylor earlier. I think this is actually now the time is to get off the hype train. I think he could have a really nice game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up, with 100 yards and a rushing touchdown again. But at 7,300, that's just, it's a little it's a bridge too far for me in terms of paying for Taylor at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's too high based on
like pay $400 and take the chalky David Montgomery instead.
Yep. I'm with you with that one. There's really not anyone I love in either of these games. Obviously, low totals. If James Conner's out, Benny Snell's 5,300. He ran well last week. He looked good, but outside of that, T.Y. Hilton was fine. He didn't really have the game that we were hoping for. Zach Pascal stole the touchdowns there. Steelers defense is still really solid. I don't love either of these games.
Yeah. Dwayne Haskins will play, according to Ron Rivera. It sounds like Christian McCaffrey will not, I don't believe. It's Wednesday, so we can't definitely say, but Haskins, of course, was at a strip club. Maskless, obviously maskless, I guess. So if you go to a strip club, do you wear a mask? I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like at that point, you're in a strip club.
Yeah,
like, does wearing a mask matter?
Yeah.
Is that the dumbest thing you've seen any player do in the last 5 years?
Oh man.
Maybe dumbest thing any player's done this year. How about that?
Probably not. Yeah, because I'm like, how many things has Antonio Brown done the past couple of years?
Fair. That's fair.
But this year, yeah.
I mean, like in a pandemic, going to a strip club after a loss when your team is winning the division and has a chance to make it to the playoffs, like just don't go to the strip club.
On top of that,
you're young. Strip clubs will be there forever.
And Haskins is finally getting a chance to start now with Alex Smith hurt and Ron Rivera recovering from cancer and stuff. It's just like,
I know. It's like you're going to a strip club and like potentially endangering your coach's life and everybody. I mean, what are you doing, Haskins?
So many things wrong with this Haskins. Bad job.
I do think McLaurin is at least intriguing here because the Panthers defense is not good. Need to look at weather, but if Haskins plays and he's the starter and he's not, he looks for McLaurin like crazy. JD McKissick too. I mean, he had a big game. They target him a ton. He just gets used in the passing game. As I mentioned, the guy who won that tournament had McKissick in there. He's not cheap, 6,400, but I mean, his, 13 rushes last week, 9 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. On DraftKings, a guy who's getting 9 or 10 catches as he's done 3 times this year and 5 times he's had 7 or more catches. That's just a massive, the upside there is huge, even without the yardage for a guy catching that many passes on DraftKings with points per catch.
Especially against the Carolina Panthers defense as well, who have just struggled so much against running backs all season. McLaurin is a good call. He's popped up in a few optimizers that I looked at this week. He's down at 6,700. So for most of the season, we were seeing him up over 7K. Now he's at 67 in a good matchup here. So I don't mind that call at all. I mean, there's really not a lot of wide receivers in that range that we've talked about. So you might get him at like a decent roster rate as well.
Yeah. And again, you have to be willing to, any interest in Teddy Bridgewater? Probably not.
No.
They're dirt cheap though.
Nah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm an idiot. Chalk play. I'm you know how bad the best bet show is going to be that we're recording right after this? Just terrible. Be all over the place.
I'll still listen.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Chalk play of the week. You're playing it anyway. You don't care how chalky it is. David Montgomery?
Yeah, unless you want Montgomery. I could leave him for you. What are you thinking?
If you got another good one, do that, and I'll take Montgomery.
I like Jalen Hurts at 7K.
Ooh, yeah, for sure.
Chalky.
Jalen Hurts is a good one. I think we'll both agree on Montgomery. I don't know if you can, Debo, I don't know if the social guys can throw that in there as Montgomery, like a little graphic Montgomery in between it. But I'll throw out Calvin Ridley too. He'll be chalky, right? I mean, if Julio's out, Ridley's gonna be chalky, but like his numbers with no Julio are just massive. And you're playing against a Chiefs team where you're going to be chasing points
for sure. Yeah,
like either you've
got Julio. I think it's in the games without Julio, he has over a 30% target share this season.
Yeah, so I'll go David Montgomery / Calvin Ridley. Actually, I'm not going to go Montgomery because I think if you play Trubisky, you're going to play Montgomery.
You can. The Jaguars defense is so bad. It's one of those things where we talk about if Derrick Henry goes off, the whole Titans offense could go off.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that way about the Bears this week.
Okay. All right. Well, Montgomery or Calvin Ridley. I'll take both of those. How about a value play of the week for you, Frank?
I'll take one of the tight ends. I'll go with Dallas Goedert.
Okay. I'll go
all Eagles, man. Wow, Debo loves this.
Debo, do you love this? The Eagles talk?
Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert.
Debo's not speaking to me.
Oh, it's great. Love. This has been just a magnificent Eagles season. So Love any chat we can get.
I will say for my value play of the week, I think Laviska Shenault is in play there. I think Keelan Cole is in play there. If you're doing bringbacks with the Bears situation, don't love them though. They burned me so many times. You're kind of scared of them. I'll say Mecole Hardman.
That's not a bet. He's
3,100 in a game that projects to be the highest scoring game of the Sunday slate. Dude's gonna get looks, and
he had 9 targets last week.
All right, Mecole Hardman it is. I'm plugging in Mecole Hardman.
Mm.
Now that's how you could get to, if you wanted to open up more of the Chiefs, you could go Mahomes, Hill, Mecole Hardman, and bring it back with Ridley. And all of a sudden you have a whole lot of exposure there. I don't think Hardman will be that owned, right?
Throw Russell Gage in there too, man. Let's just get that whole game going.
I mean, let's talk about this. let's do this. I guess we spent the entire hour talking about it.
Can we do it with Tyree? Can we get Kelsey in there too while we're at it?
I mean,
probably not, I'd imagine.
Would that be a bad idea?
I don't think so. It has the highest total on the slate. There is a chance that the Chiefs score 30 plus points and that the Falcons score at least 3 touchdowns.
All right, let's take out Bernard. Hardman. We have to go super cheap elsewhere. Obviously. No, can't get there. Not with
Kelsey.
Can't go Hardman, Hill, Kelsey, Ridley. No, you can't do it.
That leaves your remaining salaries.
No. You just, if you add Russell Gage, you're at 2,400 per pop. But I mean,
yeah,
you could bail on, bailing on Kelsey's risky as hell, but you could bail on Kelsey and go Mahomes, Hardman, Hill, Ridley, Gage, and you got 4K to work with to fill the rest of your spots.
Okay, I'm filling this out right now with Mahomes, Hill, Hardman, Ridley, Gage. You put Met as your tight end.
Yep.
What's our favorite cheap defense? Let's go with the Texans, 2,800 against the Bengals. And then you have 5K to play with. You put Giovanni Bernard as one of your running backs. You have 5,200 for your next running back.
We definitely could have just used an optimizer for this instead of me. Like, I got optimizer.
Oh, come on. This is the content that people want, I think.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. Mahomes, Ito Smith, David Johnson, Robbie Anderson, Ridley, Hill, Komet, Hardman, and Denver defense.
I like it. I got Mahomes, Bernard, Henderson, Hill, Hardman, Ridley, Goddard, Gage, Texans.
I like that. That's fun. Texas defense is a sneaky one too, because people are like high on the Bengals for some reason this week after they beat the Steelers. I like it.
Just save that lineup.
All right, I'm gonna screenshot that. All right, you heard it. That's the millionaire maker right there. We already gave out a Dickel Pickle beer situation. Got to go record a best bets thing as well. So Frank, that's it for this week. Great stuff as always, buddy. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, man.
See you. We'll talk before the new year, I think.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. See you, buddy.